Hey guys, look where we're at here at SuiteWorld 2025 in Las Vegas. We are excited to share some new episodes with you that we recorded here live in SuiteWorld in Las Vegas, talking about AI and innovation and what CFOs can do to be better leaders in this organization. So we're so excited to have you here, so stay tuned for some great episodes. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on the Count Me In podcast. Really excited to have you. We're really excited to talk with you here at SuiteWorld. But I wanted to start our conversation talking about your career journey. Sure. You know, what brought you to accounting and how did you find your way to your current role?
Yeah, so high school, took accounting classes. I was good at it. It made sense. The double-sided entry of things just was logical, orderly. So went to school to be an accounting degree and graduated and got my CMA before my CPA. Okay. And just really enjoyed solving problems and making the numbers balance. Spent about 3 years doing financial statement audits with Arthur Andersen in early days, and moved into a technology consulting role, which really morphed into IT security. That was in the late 90s, .com era, very exciting stuff, and really enjoyed doing that. Moved from Arthur Andersen to a couple of different companies in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, and then really kind of stayed in the IT security core for about 10 years. About 2010, really wanted to kind of get back into the finance side of the world, so I worked with the company that I was employed with at the time. They had just completed an ERP conversion over to Oracle, and they brought me in because of my finance and my technology background, and kind of helped navigate that through the post-ERP implementation challenges. And did that for a number of different roles within the finance organization there. And about 4.5 years ago, left and came to work for Packer Fastener, which is an industrial distribution company in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Wow. Yeah, I'm the CFO and oversee a team of about 9 people, navigating finances for 2 main entities, but 8 different subsidiaries.
Wow. So what's that like going from what you were into like this type of organization? There's so many different avenues that you have to deal with, especially with like the products that you're delivering.
Yeah, I was in transportation, a large transportation company, publicly traded, took them through an IPO. Okay. That was a big shift to back down to a smaller size organization. The company was at about $20 million of revenue when I joined them, coming from about a $4 billion company. So you can order of magnitude much less complex. Yeah. And really, the organization when I joined it was very focused on manual processes, a lot of paper, boxes of paper. Oh my goodness. And was able to kind of bring some of that focus to more digitization, technology, automation, and it's really fit very well with the company that we've grown. We're growing about a 57% annual growth rate for the last 4 or 5 years, and trying to kind of do that with the same set of team that I've got. We can try to absorb more work by just being smarter about how we work.
Yeah. So what's your philosophy as a leader? Because when I talk to different accounting leaders, everybody has a different kind of philosophy. But you're growing fast. What's your philosophy as you're leading this team through this growth?
Yeah, certainly accountability. I want people to take things and own them. But ultimately, I think curiosity is really important. And from a finance perspective, that's important because that's the same way we've always done it. That's obviously not a great way to approach a business. Yeah. And in accounting, you're going to be challenged with trying to find a good answer if you're not curious, right? Mm-hmm. When I think about the efficiency and automation, being curious about, hey, is there a better way to approach this? How are we thinking about this? All the things we've heard in the last couple of days here at SuiteWorld, there's so many things that you can take if you have that curious mindset, and let's think about how we do this. Let's do it smarter. So my approach from a leadership perspective is to try to empower people, have them be accountable for what they're assigned to, but really bring that curiosity.
So how do you develop that curiosity, that culture of curiosity? Because it's not easy, because if somebody's not naturally curious, it's hard to kind of coax that out of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's some people that I think they're comfortable in their roles and they don't necessarily They don't want to be challenged or kind of have to go outside the box, right?
Yeah.
I try to empower my team and give them. We have a standing topic in my finance team. We've L10 meetings, traction. If you're familiar with EOS, right?
Yeah.
We have a standing topic there, and I want them to come and say, "What have you learned about AI in the last week, last 2 weeks?"
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something personal, something professional. And at first, when I started introducing this is probably about a year and a half ago, didn't get a whole lot of feedback. It was kind of the blank stares, like, "What are you talking about? We're accountants, you know."
Yeah.
But over time, people started to bring in solutions, and I think that germinates the curiosity within people because they're like, "Oh, she's talking about that, and she did that in her personal life. She built a diet plan or a way to approach how am I going to manage the drop-offs with the kids, and they're using AI for tools like that." It starts to get the wheels rolling, and well, what if I did that? And maybe people that were less inclined to try on something new like an AI, the chatbots, they feel just a little bit more comfortable in doing that. So trying to ferment that curiosity among the team by giving them a little bit of space to play.
Yeah. Are there any skills or mindsets that you look for in your teammates, even, especially if you're going to hire new people? Like, what are those skills and mindsets that you're looking for, especially today, like with the changing environment?
Yeah, I mean, we had a leadership offsite 2 weeks ago, and really agreed that we want to lean into the AI, and we want to really, skill up our teams to the extent. So it's really, if I were to have to hire someone, it would be the curiosity, as I mentioned. Who's intellectually curious, but then who's not afraid to kind of tinker and play with things, try and fail within the bounds of, accounting. We still have, certain guardrails we have to adhere to, but who's willing to try that, and can you exhibit that? Can you speak in terms of digital, right? A good friend of mine from years back, we worked together, and his mantra was always, "It's just data. We can do with it whatever we want to," right?
Yeah.
And trying to get the accounting teams, finance teams to think in those terms. If I was going to hire somebody, it would be, did they think like that? Do they think of, it's not like a piece of paper that's a vendor bill. There's just a bunch of data elements on that PDF, right?
How do you build trust within your team? Because when you're trying new technologies and you want people to be curious, there has to be some trust there to kind of make that successful. How do you build that trust within your team?
Yeah, and it's a challenge because we're asking them to really get outside the comfort zone, and some people, they're less inclined to approach that. So trying to give them, again, a little bit of a seed to say, try this, and like I said earlier, maybe try and fail a little bit within the guardrails of accounting, but go ahead and I'll give you an example. So when we moved on to NetSuite, we had the ability to generate ACH payments in a much larger scale. So we would have maybe like 400 ACH payments we would queue up to go out on a particular day. It used to be somebody would go into the bank, type in the bank routing number and the account numbers, and okay, there's an ACH. I'm going to go now and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do it 400 times, right? Whereas NetSuite gave us the ability to just click, 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 and go. That didn't come without some trepidation and, oh my God, what if we do it wrong and we're going to maybe mispay and send money to a bunch of different companies? There's a lot of trepidation. So you start small. Let's try it with 1 or 2 companies, and maybe not large dollars, but let's try it with a couple of 1,000 here, 2,000 there. So you give them sort of that ability to play, and by giving them the chance to try something new, and if they make a mistake, what do we need to do to fix it? Be accountable, but also like your job's safe, right? So it's building that trust there, and trying new things, giving them the ability to fail, and still like, we're going to be okay.
And I think about the accounting team, like you had your like career AP or career AR, like you had those career people who are doing those same jobs for like 30 years.
Right.
And with all this new technology that's coming, those people don't necessarily, their job is changing. And a lot of times those career people, they don't like change very much. How have you navigated that with those kind of roles?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Accounts payable is an example. We've utilized a third party to try to do the automation of AP. So you get a PDF bill from your vendor, you kind of drag it in, and it should do the three-way match. And there was not a ton of excitement from the AP team when we went live with it. And so it's really trying to create some metrics and say, look, I know that this is the way you've done it, right? And you can easily just fall back and just type it all in. But what I'm looking to do is challenge you to say, I'm going to create a metric. It's the number of lines that we've entered like from vendor bills per hour that you've worked. Now, you might have done it one way for years, and you kind of have sort of a static metric because you're on autopilot, you know how to do it. I'm going to challenge you to increase that 5%, 10%. How many more lines are you able to do? And it's not because I want to manage people by just your number and did you meet your metric or not, but it's a way to try to draw them into, let's accept this. This is a better way for us to do this. You've probably heard Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. He says, AI is not going to replace people. AI is going to replace people that don't embrace AI, right? And so we're trying to have some of our teams embrace AI, and this is one of the mechanisms that I've tried to use to kind of like bring them to the table.
Have you had to like change team members because of all the new technology that is coming?
No, I think our company, we have a very strong culture around people, and so we are really focused on upskilling people instead of saying you're not a fit for this. Yeah. If we had to, I mean, that's a consideration because there's a certain point where we're growing really, really fast, and we want to capitalize on the growth without having to hire people linearly. So that means maybe having the right people in the right seats. Right?
Yeah. So AI is obviously changing the way the finance and accounting team looks. How have you helped your team navigate these waters? Like, what's your perspective on how it's changing the team?
Yeah, I mean, again, some people just jump in and they're excited about it. One person on my team, she used the free ChatGPT accounts, and if you've used that before, you kind of go through and you just run out of tokens, right? There's just only so much. And so she went through the next day and she had a use case she was trying to solve. She went through and, okay, I ran out of tokens. Come back tomorrow and do the same thing. And it would chain together like 10 different days to try to solve an interesting problem. That was kind of a fun example where we're trying to encourage that and celebrate it. But also you're learning a little bit too as a leader, like, should I enable you and, pay for a full subscription to just allow you to do that kind of thing?
So with all the exciting announcements that have been happening just in the last day here at SuiteWorld, what are you excited about, going forward?
Yeah. So the big splash yesterday, it was super exciting to just kind of get the introduction from Evan, CEO from Oracle. But really today, as Gary, who's in charge of the app development, and Brian Chess, who's kind of their infrastructure, to listen to them talk about the framework that they're deploying now, where you can go out as kind of an accounting team member, maybe build your own agents, and or maybe I can go out and help you build some agents because maybe you're not a super technology person. That's in the accounting world. Of course, that can extend far beyond the accounting team. So sales teams can do that. Our procurement teams can do that. Our HR team can do some of those capabilities. So it's what they've done, I think, as I'm understanding it here, is really develop that framework so that it's integrated with the NetSuite platform. Yeah. We're already, fully in with NetSuite, and this is a way for us to just continue to scale and embrace AI without having to re-platform on something completely different, right?
Yeah. So what do you think the biggest opportunity is and possible challenges as you take these next steps forward?
Yeah, I think I'm interested in, and I just heard Gary reiterate this too, is you want to automate the things that are repetitive and just time consuming and just sort of that. There's a lot of things that happen in an accounting team that's just repetitive and time consuming. Those feel like the first places we'd want to jump in and try to scale those. And some of the solutions, like I mentioned already in the AP side, it's already there, and maybe there's ways to enhance that, but there's, on the accounts receivable side, is how do we get cash in and apply that to customer invoices? Do we get it through checks? Do we get it ACH? Is there a more efficient way to do that? There's some new flux analysis capabilities they built into the suite now. There are financial exceptions, so things like, hey, you typically book an accrual for energy in this department every month. You haven't booked that. was that an oversight? So as you're kind of closing the books, you can tidy up and make sure that you got accurate numbers as you close the book. So those are areas that feel like really low-hanging fruit we can get after pretty easily.
And that's got to be exciting for the team too, because it frees them up to possibly think outside of what they've been doing every day.
Yeah, what can I do differently? You know, and a little bit of liberty too, because if I can free up, you know, an hour of your week, you can kind of go in the sandbox and play with these agents and see. That just scales into, it sort of snowballs into, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? And build on that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, as you're moving into this, how are you going to balance the balance between like automation, but also the human judgment and making sure that like everything's kind of going the right direction?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that just in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Because there's the concept of hallucinations. Mm-hmm. Obviously in accounting you need certain controls and validations. That's why you're there. So to the extent that there's human in the loop elements in any of these processes we build out, especially on the early end of it, because you know, you might be comfortable with it after you've been using it for a year, but that first week, kind of like the ACH example I used earlier, you just sort of want to do that gut check. Is this correct? Am I introducing the ability for somebody to maybe see data they're not supposed to, or to approve something they're not supposed to? Those are all things we'll want to proceed with intention, but we're not going to let that stop us either, right? You know, we're going to find ways to balance the two.
Yeah, you have to find those ways to balance the two because, you know, obviously hallucinations is a big deal. Yep. And being able to have your AI look at your data only and not looking elsewhere is a big thing. But, you know, how do you get from, okay, we're ready to do this to like, I'm afraid of hallucinations to I'm ready to like press go?
Yeah, it's going to be, again, the way I've approached it in my career. Start small, start with something that's, if it's something that's a high volume, a lot of intense work, pick off a small little sample. What happens if I do this? And then increase the sample a little bit. And before you know it, you've gotten out, you know, my day just is filled with not doing the work, but overseeing the agents that are doing the work is kind of how I think about it, right?
Do you think that it's going to allow your team to think more strategically, and how are you going to help them get to that place to think more strategically outside of the I'm just doing my mundane accounting tasks?
Yeah, I mean that's my hope, right? And that's sort of sprinkled in a lot of the work that we do. Is, you know, again, if you've seen where we came from as a very manual, paper-focused company. I think what we've sowed so far is that creativity, and by continuing to enhance, add more automation, and the AI is going to be key for that. If you can add more of that, you know, people are excited about what can I accomplish here? What's new? What can I do? What's the strategic side? And we're a rapidly growing company too, so the things that work as a finance team with a $20 million company are not what work as a $500 million company, and so we all need to collectively think strategically a little bit differently. So you're thinking more about cash flow models. You're thinking more about maybe investor relations type things. Those are areas that we'll have to scale up to.
What do you think about like the next generation of accountants coming up from colleges? What advice would you give to them if they're listening to this conversation? Like, hey, I want to get in on this. What skills should I be getting into? What should I be doing? Because the traditional, like, if you went to school for accounting 20 years ago, you're not looking at the same thing. The foundation is still the same, but there's so many other skills that you need.
Yeah, really. I mean, you know, I was in high school in the late 80s and the early 90s, and it literally was on paper, right? Yeah. So what we thought about as accounting was very simple compared to what we do now. The volume of what systems do on your behalf now, thinking systemically, thinking digitally, I think. If you're reading an accounting textbook and you say, well, you have to book, you know, debit to cash and a credit to sales, that's obviously you need to start somewhere with that. But you have to think bigger systemically. I need to there's clearing accounts. There's, you know, those are things you get kind of with experience working with a large company with a complex system. But if you can conceptualize that as a student and to the extent that they can augment in education tracks with that, I think that's going to service our young prospects.
Yeah, it definitely will, because you still need that foundation. Like because if you're looking at what the AI is doing, you need to understand. Because if you need to check their work, if you need to see, hey, is this working correctly? You need to understand what's happening behind the scenes.
Correct. Yeah, I mean reconciliations is a great, it used to be the one question I would ask somebody when I was interviewing them. I said, explain to me what a reconciliation is. And you could really tell a lot from their answers to that.
Sure.
Do they really kind of get that? I think there's probably a series of new questions that would make sense to ask in the same vein, like, okay, how does a system, how do you balance a subledger against a general ledger in a high volume situation, right? And those are types of things you'd try to tease out.
So when you think about your leadership journey so far, what's something you would say I'm most proud of in my leadership journey?
I've tried a lot of different things where I haven't been afraid to kind of peel the onion, get really into the weeds on it, but then also come back up and think strategically about it. And I think I've had good people I've worked with over the years that have kind of enabled me to do that. Early in my career, I wasn't necessarily comfortable talking at a very high level without understanding really how was the sausage made, right? And so it's kind of being able to kind of explore on both of those veins, the top level thinking and the low level thinking. I feel like I kind of bring both of those to the role that I'm in right now, and I think I'm pretty proud of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. You mentioned that you kind of started in IT and then kind of moved to the finance, the CFO side. Do you think that tomorrow's CFOs should be really looking in technology and the accounting side as well?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think I was just excited because I came out of college in the .com boom, and I was super excited about the internet and all that came with that, and so I was started as an accountant, but was really excited about the digital technology side of it. I think it's certainly not going to hurt finance professionals to really kind of, I don't know, I guess how you avoid it in today's world with all the AI. And if you're not conversational and LLMs and chatbots and again building out agents in the future here, you might be you might be in competition with people that are.
Sure. So if somebody's listening to this conversation and they're like, okay, I want to get where you're at. I want to make sure my team is ready for this AI thing. I want to make sure that they are we're creating a culture for they can fail well and learn from that. What's that first step that they should take?
So I'm part of a local FEI, Finance Executives chapter, and we as a group kind of talk about those types of questions. Like people say, hey, it seems like you guys are really progressive in AI. What are you doing? How do I get started?
Yeah.
And the answer we've had lately has been, we had a ROC earlier this year where we had an AI 101 training. So for 3 separate months, we did a 1 month, an hour-long training each month. And it was for the whole company. Tune in, and we're going to explain what AI is and LLMs. The second one is we're going to talk a little bit more about how you write a prompt, right?
Yeah.
And then the third one was we had a contest. We introduced it to the whole company. We said, look, we want you to go out. We want you to try AI. Come back to us. What were some of the cool cases that you found, whether it's business, something personal? Bring it back. And we had a contest and awarded some prizes out to the top people. I share that with other companies that are kind of in that, how do I get started here? Yeah. For us, that was a really good genesis to try to get people excited about it. And we think we accomplished a lot with that. In fact, we're going to try to do an AI 201 here as we close out the year to kind of double back and see where people are at. Update with now, especially what we've learned this week here, and where do we see NetSuite going. Those are areas. Again, I think there's another great book too that we've just kind of finished as a leadership group called The AI-Driven Leader. It really embraces the idea of using AI as your strategic thought partner. So I'd encourage people to crack that one. It's a good audiobook, easy listen. But it really hammers home some very strategic uses of AI.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate you coming on the Count Me In podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with our audience.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.